History talks about the good guys, but who are the bad ones hiding in the background, ready to traverse the darker alleys of the past? Who were these 10 that their tales still send shivers down our spine? Why do they still haunt our collective psyche? Brace yourself. It's time to uncover what's been buried. Number 10. Leonid Minin. Born in Ukraine in 1947, Leonid Minin is a name that sends ripples through the annals of global crime. With the post-Cold War world and its vast unguarded arsenals as his backdrop, Minin ventured deep into the underworld of arms dealing. The chaos that followed the Soviet Union's dissolution became his playground, and soon he was masterfully supplying weapons internationally. His clientele was as notorious as him. Among the most infamous was Charles Taylor, Liberia's controversial ex-president, later convicted of war crimes. Yet, arms weren't Minin's only sinister trade. He delved into the double-crossing world of blood diamonds, gems mined in war zones, further funding conflict. When apprehended in Italy in 2000, authorities found him with a staggering $500,000 worth of these diamonds. Beyond his criminal pursuits, Minin's life was a whirlwind of excess and hedonism, frequently clouded by drugs, alcohol, and illicit companionships. In arresting Minin, the world witnessed a stark portrayal of modern crime's reach, interweaving war, business, and lawlessness. And speaking of crossing boundaries, how about a man who did so without any weapon? Number 9. Charles Ponzi. The name Ponzi is now synonymous with financial fraud thanks to Charles Ponzi and his infamous scheme. Posing as a legitimate businessman in the early 20th century, Ponzi lured investors with promises of high returns from an obscure mechanism involving postal reply coupons. The reality? A classic rob Peter to pay Paul system, where funds from new investors paid off the older ones. This unsustainable house of cards eventually collapsed, but not before Ponzi had swindled millions. His legacy persists in the form of the Ponzi scheme, a cautionary tale for investors worldwide. But from the silent streets of deception, let's ride into the loud, wild terrains of the Old West. Don't miss out on our next journey into the unknown. Click subscribe and join the adventure. Number 8. Jesse James. The American Old West has its share of legends, but few shine as brightly or as darkly as Jesse James. A charismatic train robber, James, alongside the James Younger gang, left an indelible mark on American folklore. Their robberies weren't just about wealth. They bore political undertones, with their support for the Confederacy during the Civil War further complicating their narrative. Despite his criminal activities, James found admiration from many, particularly in his home state of Missouri. His end came unexpectedly when betrayed by fellow gang member Robert Ford. Jesse ruled the West, but who soared high in Mexico's crime skies? Number 7. Amado Carrillo Fuentes. Known as the Lord of the Skies, Amado didn't just dominate the drug trade, he revolutionized it. Commanding the Juarez cartel, he demonstrated how audacity mixed with innovation could create an empire. But beyond the drugs and power was a man constantly on the run, not just from the law, but from his own notoriety. His demise during a plastic surgery is a testament to the lengths he went to maintain his reign. But from the high-flying narco skies, we journey next to the streets of Boston, where another mastermind evaded the very grip of the law. Amado's empire touched the heavens, but who was Boston's cold-hearted shadow? Here's James Whitey Bulger, number 6. James Whitey Bulger. From the vibrant neighborhoods of Boston emerged a criminal so cunning he left authorities scratching their heads for decades. Bulger, starting as a street thug, rose to lead the notorious Winter Hill Gang. His repertoire of crimes was diverse, but what made Bulger truly notorious was his ability to evade capture, living in the shadows until the age of 81. Such resilience and cunning. But from urban legends, let's explore a story of a man who wore his crimes on his sleeve, operating in broad daylight. From Boston's frost, who traded arms under Florida's sun, introducing Jean-Bernard Lasneau. Number 5. Jean-Bernard Lasneau. In the age of globalized crime, few figures were as elusive and audacious as Jean-Bernard Lasneau. This arms dealer, originally from France, made headlines in the 80s and 90s for his blatant disregard for international trade embargoes. Lasneau's audacity wasn't just in the arms deals, but also in how openly he operated. Fleeing European law enforcement, he resurfaced in sunny Florida, converting his illicit trade into an online business. From the comfort of his plush condo, Lasnaud even set up a website, advertising fighter jets and machine guns for the right price. His almost brazen visibility was his shield for a while, but in 2002, after vanishing briefly, he was arrested in Switzerland, putting an end to his run. Number 4. Mickey Cohen. Mickey Cohen was not just another gangster, he was Los Angeles' very own underworld celebrity. Starting his career as mafia muscle during Prohibition, Cohen's ambition drove him up the criminal hierarchy. Unlike many mobsters of his era, Cohen had a flair for the theatrical. He understood the power of media and often spun his criminal activities into captivating stories. A sharp dresser with a flashy lifestyle, Cohen relished the spotlight, sometimes making headlines more for his lavish lifestyle than his criminal endeavors. Yet, despite the numerous crimes under his belt, it was tax evasion that finally ensnared him. In the glitz and glam of Hollywood, Mickey Cohen was a dark star, shining bright. But moving from the glittering streets of Hollywood, we step back in time to an era where a man became public enemy no. 1. Number 3. John Dillinger. In an America battered by the Great Depression, John Dillinger emerged as an anti-hero. More than just a bank robber, he was an emblem of rebellion against a system that seemed to have failed the common man. With a charm that endeared him to the public and a daring that frustrated the law, Dillinger's spree encompassed jailbreaks, heists, and shootouts. His fame was such that he was declared public enemy No. 1 by the FBI. However, it wasn't just his crimes that captivated America, but his persona, a modern-day Robin Hood, as some perceived. His death outside a Chicago movie theater marked the end of a brief, yet iconic criminal career. As we reflect on Dillinger, we see a man who became the face of a desperate era. Dillinger made headlines, but who's the kingpin whose empire sent tremors across nations? Here comes Pablo Escobar. Number 2. Pablo Escobar. Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria. These words, spoken in hushed tones in 1980s Colombia, evoked both fear and awe. Rising from humble beginnings, Escobar molded the Medellin cartel into an empire, built atop the white powder of cocaine. His rule was paradoxical. On one hand, he was the benevolent Robin Hood who constructed housing for the destitute. On the other, a tyrant responsible for thousands of deaths. Escobar's audacity was unbounded, from offering to pay Colombia's national debt to waging a personal war against the state. His end, on a Medellin rooftop, was as dramatic as his life, surrounded by family legends, myths, and an enduring legacy. His narrative reminds us that in crime, the line between savior and tyrant is often blurred. Yet, before the era of cartels, another name captured the imagination of a country. Escobar's reign was fierce, but who put the organized in organized crime before it was cool? Wait for number 1. Number 1. Al Capone. In the roaring 1920s, when the U.S. gripped the Prohibition-era's stranglehold, a figure emerged from Chicago's shadowed alleyways, poised to reign over the underworld. Al Capone. A blend of brutality and shrewd business acumen, Capone's influence seeped into every corner of Chicago. He wasn't just a mobster, he was the embodiment of a time when crime met enterprise. Speakeasies, illicit breweries, and illegal gambling dens burgeoned under his watch, generating vast fortunes. But it wasn't just his economic pursuits that made headlines. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre, where 7 members of a rival gang were gunned down in broad daylight, became a testament to Capone's ruthless grip over the city. Yet for all his criminal mastermind, it was the mundane charge of tax evasion that became his undoing. Capone's story reminds us of a time when crime was not just an act, but a lucrative business. And from the bustling streets of Chicago, we move south to the rugged terrains of Colombia. From audacious heists to sinister schemes, from charming rogues to bloodthirsty kingpins, this journey into the world of crime showcases humanity's darker shades. The stories of these 10 remind us that sometimes the most captivating tales aren't about heroes, but about those who dared to defy, for better or for worse. To continue this thrilling ride through history, make sure you're subscribed. More mysteries await.